want to see the world.
When you pick up a book
I used to read every night to all the younger kids.
and let your imagination break free, you won't believe how much fun it can be.
Let down your help!
Experience a world of adventure, excitement, and endless possibilities. Get tangled up in a good book. Explore new worlds. Read. Visit read.gov today.
Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phalen, a weekly program here on LSN Television, Time Warner, right out of Lancaster. And also we're carried by a number of radio affiliates throughout Central Ohio. I do appreciate you, the viewers and listeners that join us each and every week. And back by popular demand, Brett, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to be back.
And why don't you introduce yourself? And for the listeners that may have not seen last week's program, tell us a little bit about what you're doing here in Lancaster today.
I would love to. I'd love to. Dave, thank you. My name is Brett Corin. I work for Prison Fellowship here in Ohio. Prison Fellowship is a ministry to inmates and their families, both on the inside and then helping them in reentry as they come out. Here in the Lancaster area, Prison Fellowship is the great, exciting opportunity to be a part of a reintegration program at SCI, which is Southeastern Correctional Institute, where we're doing classes for inmates, pre-release classes to help prepare them for life on the outside, and really helping them to change the way they think, helping them to understand who they are and why they are today, and who they are and where they want to be tomorrow, and how to get there, and as I kind of say, taking baby steps to get to that point.
Now, this is a ministry that's been in place since the 70s.
Mhm.
Chuck Colson originated the concept and the idea.
That's right. Yeah, it's a real honor to be a part of Chuck's legacy. I wish I knew him well. Unfortunately, I joined Prison Fellowship after Chuck passed away, but he left an incredible legacy of ministry throughout the world through Prison Fellowship.
Now, have you been out to Southeast Correctional Institute before, or is this all new?
I have been out there, but the first time I went out was my first day on this job.
Okay.
But I've been going out there at least weekly for the last 7 months, coming down from Columbus and being a part of that reintegration class and teaching usually the Tuesday night class with the guys. It's been a lot of fun.
And so how long does the class last? And then is this an ongoing thing when they're incarcerated, or is this more, I'm going to be out in 90 days, 6 months, and that's when they start going to these classes? Or is this something that is ongoing during their incarceration?
Well, no, and yes.
Okay.
The idea is the guys who are enrolled in the class first have to be a part of the faith-based housing unit there at SCI. All the state prisons have a faith-based housing unit. And second, they have to be to be in our class, they're supposed to be within 2 to 3 years of their release date.
Okay.
So then they apply to be in the class, and if they pass all the requirements, they're in the class. And it's a year-long class that meets 3 times a week for an hour and a half.
That's pretty intensive.
It is wonderfully intensive. It's a great experience. It's faith-based. We come from a biblical, I can't talk. Biblical model. There we go. That was wonderful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But the men in the class come from different faith backgrounds.
Okay.
But they have to profess some sort of faith. And the idea is the things we talk about, even though it's a biblical background, it can hopefully through their own faith beliefs they can apply it and experience change that way.
Okay. So what are some of the things that they take that you share with them during the class?
Well, it's a number of different things, and again, ultimately, it's a mind idea that the way we think controls who we are, and taking ownership of that, like I said before, and where you are today is very important. But also realizing that renewing your mind, changing your way of thinking, will change who you are over time, and that is a spiritual issue, but it's also a thinking issue. And so we do everything from relationships to budgets to taking ownership for the victims they may have impacted, to recovery issues, to how to find a job, and everything in between.
And so have you ever tracked how many people are successful? And
Well,
how that recidivism.
in Ohio, we're still new into this, but we have a similar program that's a little more developed both in Texas and Minnesota. And in those states, their recidivism levels have been lowered dramatically. In one state, it's 15%. In the other state, it's less than 5%.
That's pretty amazing.
It is. It's unbelievable.
Because the reality is, and I don't know what these statistics are, but there's really a disproportionate number of people that get released from the penitentiary that within a few years are back.
Yeah, it's over half.
Yeah, I would think so.
Depending on the state and the person, right? Well, and again, I think that, the challenge is 95% of everybody who's incarcerated is going to be released. So how do we help each of these men and women prepare for life on the outside,
Right.
and ultimately be the person that God's created them to be?
Right.
So that's what we're really trying to do.
Now, you've been with them
7 months.
7 months, and is there anything in this 7 months that kind of that struck you as part of a class or part of somebody that you kind of got to know as far as the prisoners that kind of says, wow, this is something?
Yeah, absolutely. Forgiveness.
Okay.
Forgiveness is something maybe for you or I we certainly appreciate, and we have accepted forgiveness and forgiven others and asked for forgiveness. But for many of these folks who are incarcerated, they've never even thought about forgiveness. And we did an exercise a month or so ago where I just asked guys to take out a piece of paper and write down the worst thing you've ever done. Not for anybody else to read but you, but just write it down. And a number of the guys paused because they didn't even want to think about it. They were terrified of what that might mean to just even write that down. And then I said, once you write it down, turn it over and just kind of sit there in silence for a moment. Said now, and then we read some scriptures, and I asked them to turn over, and I said, take a pen and just start blotting it out until you can't read any of it.
Right.
And then we stopped, we were quiet for a few moments, and I said, now, crumple it up, and we were quiet. It took it really slow, and finally, I said, just throw it to the front of the room and forget about it. You've been forgiven. You've sought forgiveness, and now accept that forgiveness. And a couple weeks later, one of the gentlemen, he's one of the old timers there, came up to me and said, Brett, I want you to know that forgiveness exercise was life-changing for me. Well, that's great. Would you mind just writing down what that meant to you? He goes, I will, and I also want you, I would have told you before now, but this is the first time I can talk about it without completely choking up. And he wrote me the letter, and I got it a week later, and his story in brief was he was in prison for voluntary manslaughter. So he had taken a life. And he'd also been a Vietnam veteran, so he'd taken lives before, so he knows what that's like.
Sure.
And he'd never faced that. And he says, when I wrote that down, it was the scariest, hardest thing I ever did. He says, when I crumpled that up, I started to feel a change. He says, when I threw it to the front of the room and it landed by your feet, I couldn't breathe. It took all the air out of my lungs because it hit me in that moment for the first time that God could forgive me, even me, for what I had done.
Wow, that's
He goes,
powerful.
and he said, for weeks I couldn't even talk about it. It was too much for me.
Wow, that is powerful. That is powerful.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah. How many people typically are at one of the classes?
Our first class started at 30. We've lost a couple guys. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
they still make bad decisions on the inside.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, and that's basically because of the classroom space. We're starting our second class, and that class is right at about 22, just a little bit smaller. And the hope there is that SCI that we'll run 2 classes constantly, even in recycling them as we go.
They probably enjoy the class.
It seems like it. I know I do. I think I learn more than the guys do.
Right.
From them and their life experiences and who they are. It's really fun.
So as the director here in the state of Ohio, what is kind of your goals in here the months and years to come? Not only for Southeastern, but maybe throughout the state.
Well, this program I think is pretty cool, exciting new stuff. And the fact that the state of Ohio recognizes that faith-based programming is more effective than non-faith-based programming. I think we have a great opportunity right now, not only at SCI with the guys there, but also we're going to be at PCI, which is Pickaway Correctional near Orient, and then we're hoping to be up at either ORW, which is Marysville, the Women's Prison, or Richland Correctional Institute up near Mansfield. And I'm just excited about the opportunities there. And it's something that I think that as long as things go the way we hope they will, it could develop into a program in all the facilities in the state, including we've even had conversations with folks up at the Supermax up near Youngstown and what is reintegration, because those guys get released too.
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of calls today.
Well, you're an important guy.
I don't know about that, but they must know when I'm on there.
That's right.
They save all the calls for when we're on there, and then they start calling. Well, it's a wonderful ministry, and how has it been received? Not only by the prisoners, but also by the officials within the judicial system, within the prison system. Because I bet that's could be a mixed bag, but
yeah, so far, I mean, again, it's like anything. If we come in with an attitude that we know everything and you don't,
right,
we're gonna get pushback. But one of the things I've really tried to do and teach my volunteers to do is we can learn from everybody that's in this prison, inmates, corrections officers, and administration, and we can, and in essence, we're not just there for the inmates, we're there for all of them. The Prison Fellowship hopefully will be a great influence on everybody that both is incarcerated at the prisons but also works at those prisons. And I mean, you may already know this being a sheriff, but the second highest group of people in our culture that experience post-traumatic stress disorder are prison guards after soldiers who fight in combat. So that's a tough job and a tough place to be, and I hope that we bring hope to them as well, just like we do to the inmates.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to that. Anytime you're doing these ministries, whatever they may be, with prisoners, you're also affecting the staff,
yeah.
And sometimes they need the same thing as some of these prisoners, as far as hope, forgiveness that you mentioned. I'm sure that if there was some prison guards in that room that had to kind of touch home to them, because we all have things that we're sorry for. There's always things that we would say, oh, if I had it to do over, I would do over.
Yeah.
And maybe to write that down and understand that God can cover those things.
Yeah.
It would be certainly a wonderful experience, whether it be a prisoner or a guard.
I agree, and I think sometimes we can have tunnel vision on why we're there and miss the people that we pass as we walk through the yard or we're passing through the gates, and they have just as much need for that hope as anybody.
Now again, if someone, we talked about this last week, if someone wants to get involved in Prison Fellowship, how do they do it? How do they get a hold of you? And what happens once they get started? Or
right.
how will they get started once they get a hold of you? Because it's probably not for everyone, and maybe there's some things that somebody think I'm interested in, maybe once they knew a little bit more they might be uncomfortable.
There are, I mean, for the whole wide range of the opportunities of Prison Fellowship, you certainly can go to our website, which is prisonfellowship.org.
Okay.
But you could also call me at
Okay.
614-531-1008.
Okay.
Or email me at Brett, BRETT_core,
Okay.
CORE @pfm.org. And there's in-prison ministry opportunities, everything from Bible studies to programs to mentoring. This reintegration program, obviously here in Lancaster, I'm always looking for volunteers for that. There's also opportunities in the outside. If your church wanted to be involved, we have a training curriculum called Bridge Church Training for churches that want to be a part of reentry for men and women who are being released and trying to reintegrate into the society, and how churches can embrace those people and care for them. There are also opportunities through Angel Tree for churches or individuals, which is a way to serve the children of inmates at Christmas time and beyond. So there's a lot of great opportunities if this is something that pulls at someone's heartstrings and they feel like God might be calling them to be a part of.
And I'd also urge the viewers and listeners that if they feel prompting, that they need to follow through on it. Because I can remember my wife, never been in jail, never been associated with prisoners. When she kind of felt that calling to start a ministry within our jail, there certainly was, I'm an elementary school teacher. That's not my gifting.
Yep.
I don't know anything about prisoners. I don't want to do it. And now it has become one of her passions in her life, and she's even had to give up teaching, and that is really one of the things that she does more than full time. And if you could have asked her that 10 years ago, it would have been, there's just no possible way. So I think if you're out there listening or watching us today, if you do feel that nudge on your heart to say, maybe I better look at this, please call. Before we sign off, give that number again one more time. If you're at home, write this down.
My phone number, 614-531-1008.
Okay, Brett Core with us. We're in Prison Fellowship. Joined us the last couple weeks. What I'd like you to do, if it's okay, once you kind of get down here a year from now or something, get in touch with me. We'll get you back on the air and look about what we've seen in the last year, and we think it's going to be wonderful.
I love that. Thank you.
Okay.
Love it.
Appreciate you, the viewers and listeners that join us each and every week on This Week with Sheriff Dave Phalen. It's a program that we have done on the radio now for 12 years and on television for about 18 months. And it's been a great tool for me to get input from you, the citizens, and for the citizens to understand more that goes on within Fairfield County, things like prison fellowship, things like how we're doing on solving a robbery here in the county. So we try to keep a lot of different things coming at you each and every week. Well, again, I want to appreciate the students here at Fairfield Christian Academy that put this program together. Appreciate you, the viewers and listeners. And the clock on the wall says we got to go. So if you're out there driving, buckle up. God bless, and we'll see you right here next week.
American Idol asked us to sum up our life goals, and I said I wanted to be a loving father and a faithful husband and a servant of all. And I think the servant of all, that's the main one, and I think that's what we're called to be. And it's to give our life for God, to give our life for those around us, to give our life for the good fight. My name is Jason Castro, and I'm second.